Woo! Good afternoon. It's summer. It's not.
It it is gorgeous out here. I'm enjoying the day, enjoying the weather. It's like it turned to summer overnight.
Yeah.
Just about.
I know a few
So
kids who are playing lacrosse this weekend who are not excited about the 90s that we're going to be experiencing. And actually, Sam has the weekend off because he's not playing select this year. And so,
I didn't know that.
yeah, he's like, I'd rather focus
Nah.
on disc golf. I'm rec lacrosse is fun. Select is so competitive it stops being fun. So, um, yeah, a lot of people are like, why not? Like, he's got disc golf. He's focused. He's going to nationals in August. He's got to get focused on preparing for that.
Yeah. Why not? Do what you do. What makes you that you're enjoying it. If it's not enjoyable, why do it?
By the way, it's Mother's Day this weekend.
I do.
Okay, good, good, good. And
Why? Why do you? Why,
I thought I would
why do
just,
you?
in the event that for some reason it had snuck up on you, because this year has been a sneaky one. I mean, like Easter was all of a sudden upon us. I remember it was like a week and a half away, and we're like, oh my gosh, or it's just yeah. So Mother's Day. I mean, I'm prepared when it comes to Vanessa. I am not prepared when it comes to my own mom. So
Yeah. And as I was talking to someone today about this, Mother's Day is. Yeah, I don't think we realized this when we were younger, but it's a mixed bag. I mean, on the one hand, it's a wonderful thank you from you, mom, I love you, all that, but then there's also the I miss you, mom. There's a
yeah,
grief. Yeah.
there's a company that I occasionally buy things from, and about 3 or 4 weeks before Mother's Day, they send out a note that says, if you would prefer not to receive promotional emails from us during this period, just let us know. And they'll remove you from the
Wow.
list so that you're not getting constant reminders of Mother's Day. And I thought, well, how
That's very
thoughtful. Yeah, very thoughtful.
yeah. In fact, yeah, because there's one person that I know that has well, I know there's multiple times there's been people who've considered not coming to church on that particular day because of the pain of not being a mom or
Mm.
or or abortions that they've had or grief because they've lost their mom that they just don't want to be reminded of it. And so yeah, it's a thing that I don't think I would have really thought about until the last couple of years.
Yeah,
So
yeah, fair, fair.
so yes, I remembered.
Okay. Well, now as folks are probably aware, I was not at church this past Sunday. And Dan, who has been helping out on the worship team very capably, I understand, stepped in and took the reins. And I'm so ever so grateful for Dan for that, because I don't get as many breaks as I'd like. And it's just wonderful to have somebody that you can tap on the shoulder and know that they're going to take care of things. So, well, that also
Yeah,
means
you were missed, but he did a great job.
yeah.
So yeah, and we're going to be doing a song that Joe, you haven't done before. We're going to redo it this coming week, and because it's an old hymn that I had never heard of, but we were walking, we were practicing it. They were practicing it, and Jan came in, and I said, "Do you know this song?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, I know that song."
There you go.
I mean, it's a hymn, but he countrifies it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I better
Yeah.
go back and listen
So
to it so that I'm prepared on Sunday to hear his version of it.
It's if you want to check where it is, it's near He plays it for communion. We're not going to do it for communion, but that's the part of the service.
Fair enough.
So
Now, the part of the reason I mentioned I wasn't there is because I didn't hear the sermon, and truth be told, I didn't go back and watch it so that I could hear the sermon before we had this conversation. So I will take the encapsulated version.
Sure. So what we're looking at Ephesians 2 verses 14 through 18, really that whole section of 11 through 22, but we're really more focused on 14 through 18. And as I was preparing for the sermon last week, I got to the later in the week, and I went, there's just too much to say. I just need to step back and say a part of it. And one of the things I needed to say was things that are not said by. And that's even going to be in two different parts. This last week was, what has he already said that needs to be in context of what he's saying here? And this section is, in fact, about dealing with racial issues, about tension, hostility. He's looking at it through the lens of Jews versus Gentiles, but that applies all over. And what it is a divine perspective, a God's perspective on this topic. And there's a couple of pieces. One he doesn't mention, but it's worth at least tipping your hat to it, and that's Genesis 1:27, that everybody is image of God. Everybody. There really is one race in that sense. But the other pieces of it is if you go back to verses 1 through 3, my dog's just saw something is starting to bark. I close the door. He's making the case that it doesn't matter if the Jews are privileged, which they are, because they have the prophets, they have the law, they have all the promises, but it doesn't change the fact that they, just like everybody else, are all guilty. They're all sinful. And that was the first big point I wanted to make, was from a street level perspective, everybody is at different heights of righteousness. Some people are skyscrapers of righteousness. They're amazingly good people, and some people are at trash can level, right? And it's all kinds of different levels. And that's not to say that that's not the case. God, of course, knows that viewpoint. But what he's doing is he's looking at it as an aerial perspective, and that from that perspective, the heights are irrelevant. That it just kind of flattens it out and say, well, they're all sinful. And so that was the first point I wanted to make, that whether we're part of the group that is in contemporary context, the people who have been doing the injustices, who've been doing the oppression, we need to recognize, we really are guilty of something, and there are things of guilt that we need to see. But on the flip side, those who have been the affectees of it, they have their own sets of guilt too. I mean, there's plenty of fingers to go around all over the place. It's the Gandhi quote, of, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. We're all guilty. So let's just recognize that there's guilt everywhere. There's injustices and wrongs to go around. That's the first piece. So I can pause with that. There's two more pieces, really just one major one. So do you want to pause? Let's just talk about that part.
I muted myself, so you couldn't tell that, but the people online could. It's obviously a hot button topic, and it's awesome to take the time to have a biblical perspective on that. There's this tug of war, as you and I were talking about culture before we started recording, and its influence on the church as well as people outside the church. I think, as we're talking about this and understanding what the Bible says, it's like so many things that we read, and we have to apply we have to view it through the culture of the time, and also view it through our culture or the lens of today. How does it apply to us today? One of the things that I take from that is that there's kind of an element of grace that needs to be applied as
Hmm.
we're evaluating topics like this. Especially like for somebody like me who can get pretty wrapped up in social justice, right? Um, it can be really easy to get on the finger, pounding your hand on the table. No, this isn't right. This is the way that it should be. We were also talking about how hard it is for people to change hearts, and um, we have to acknowledge that the people that we're hoping will change, it's not something that's going to happen quickly, and that change is generally influenced through relationship, and that we're all messy people, and so I got things to change. They got things to change. Um, if we are giving grace, in a reciprocal fashion, that allows us to make the corrections that are necessary, and you know, especially that top-down view, right? Hard to measure
Hmm.
height when you're looking from on high, right? There is no height. It's just a dot.
There is.
Center, 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 right?
And it's not that God is not acknowledging that there is differences and that different people are in some ways much more guilty about certain issues today. That's not what I'm saying. Is that I'm not dismissing any of that. Part of, I guess, what I'm trying to say is that for those who are being said that you are the ones who need to change in your, as you said, who our culture today is saying you're not right. There's a part of you need to say, yeah, you're right. Right, there is guilt. I have guilt, and not shy away from that. Just embrace the fact of that. And then, but there's the other side of it is that those who are saying to them, you're wrong, you need to change. There's things in your life that's not right either, and there's guilt everywhere. As in 10 years, 15 years, what's the next generation going to say that you're doing wrong
Yeah,
that you don't see? Right? I mean, so until we kind of come to that leveling playing field of, and this is not the final step. This is just a piece of it. It's just recognizing there's guilt everywhere. The second piece of it is um, just like, because one of the pieces that I'm trying to communicate with this whole thing is in verses 1 through 10 is all about personal salvation. We're saved by grace through faith, right? And this is not of yourselves, it's a gift of God, right? To apply all of that information, all of that way of looking at things about individuals and applying it to a cultural, racial, governmental, uh, civilization level as well, because that's what Paul is doing. And so, just like I'm a sinner, right? But the other part of it is that Paul makes in this big piece is you can't fix yourself. You can't do that. I mean, that is extremely clear. And I did multiple topics on this point. You can't fix yourselves. And one of the things that the scripture is saying to this issue is um, that ultimately humanity is not going to fix the hostility issues between humanity. Whether we're talking what's going on in Ukraine, you're talking about things in Palestine, whether you're talking about things in America, and it's not that we shouldn't use education, it's not that we shouldn't use politics or money. Of course, we need to do all those things, but don't put your ultimate hope into that, because just like with personal salvation, we can't fix our sin. We can't fix the sin at a human level either. The problem is the heart, and that we need to do what we can do, but ultimately we're not going to fix this. We can make it better, but it's going to come out in some other way. So that was the second big piece: is we can't fix it. We can make it better, moderate it, but we can't fix it.
it's reminiscent to me of the conversation about evangelism and the role of the Holy Spirit. That
Mm.
um, we have a role, but ultimately it's not up to us.
Right.
That whatever we do, if its intention is good, the Spirit is still the one that's getting the work done. And
Hmm.
and there's a freedom in understanding that you don't have to take the ball across the finish line necessarily. And in this case, maybe it's not our job to try to take the ball across the finish line. It's what small thing can you do, recognizing that ultimately this is in his hands. That we can't cure ourselves or anyone else of sin. We can work toward being the best version of ourselves that we can within the constraints of our flawed individuals. We are as flawed individuals. You can't make other people. You can't fix other people. You can't fix organizations.
No.
I like when Vanessa went back to school to become a therapist. One of the things I was very clear about is, you don't get to try to fix me, right? It was just one of those things. It's like, and that's somebody that I have a very, very close relationship with, right? Right.
Yeah.
So how does that feel when somebody that you have no relationship with is trying to fix you, right?
Yeah.
And so I think we could look at that as a freedom. Like, your job isn't to fix people or to solve the world's problems, but to influence in a Christ-like way.
Right.
But again, I think that there's something really wonderful and freeing about that.
And again, this cuts both ways for both sides of the political divide. That because both sides in our country, everywhere we hear, is that the solutions that they're wanting, and frankly from a lot of Christians as well, is this that what we need is more politics. That politics will fix the problem in our society. That politics is or education or money and rallies. And it's like, I'm not saying not to do those things. It's just like, but where's your hope? Which is really kind of the final piece. Where's the hope? It's, again, you act justly, you love mercy, but ultimately that's not going to fix it. As we look through this, all of chapter 2, God's perspective is, from his perspective, humanity's not going to fix its problem. I've got to do something. And which was the final point, was like Paul puts he puts all the crushing weight of hostility between people groups on Jesus being the solution. And man, humanity doesn't want to hear that we can't fix ourselves. We really don't like that. We like the idea that we can do it. This idea of a utopia that we can create on our own. Man, that independence from God is something that's it plagues all of us, on an individual level and then on a societal level. And so that was kind of the three big points.
I wonder, I think about the kind of the foundational, let's say, desire to not understand people, but to control people. I think that's something that we contend with. And I think about we often talk about traffic, and that there's some guy that's going to cut around you and whatever, right? And we're not trying to understand. We're just like, we're already judging. We're already like, oh, you got to be.
I gotta be. I'm like, oh, go away. Go ahead.
Right. And this is where somebody like me, who's trying to fix, right? And I think guys deal with this, if like
we do.
My goal is to fix things. Oh, you presented me with a problem. I shall fix it. Not trying to understand, not trying to be present, but trying to fix. And I think that's kind of that's a sin right there. There's a sin of pride that's kind of underlying that when we, and whether it's our desire to fix other people or our reticence to change ourselves, or even our desire to like tell other people, leave me alone, I'm going to fix myself, right? There's pride that's underneath all of those. And
all of that.
Yeah.
So there's, I mean, with all of these, for me, there's such a freedom in that. Okay, if you just step through each one of them, okay, we're all guilty. That means, okay, so when someone points out to me, Brian, that some of the sins that this society is saying that I have been guilty of or encouraging, I can humbly go, oh, maybe there's something I need to change. Like, okay, yeah. And I don't need to be defensive about it, but I can embrace it because that's true. God's perspective says that, yeah, you're right. I'm a sinner. And then then, I can't fix it, but I can act justly. I can do what I can. And I don't have to have all the weight of fixing me or this world on myself. I think sometimes a lot of the fear and the anger that we're seeing out there is because of this perspective that doesn't have a God involved. So the only solution is anger. There's that they don't have anything else. There's no hope for anything else to fix it, just ourselves. So, oof, what do you got left?
Yeah,
that's it. There's no hope for justice. There's no hope for equality. There's no hope for healing, other than demanding it and screaming. It's like, or in a place for humility, without a God telling you, no, Brian, you're part of the problem too.
I feel convicted really right now because I recognize in myself, it's something that I've been struggling with for a long time. And I really identified it probably 12, 13 years ago, is that when somebody is trying to provide me with constructive criticism, and I mean that as in they are in a loving way trying to point out an opportunity for me to grow, to be better, to
right.
Whatever.
Go.
That
yeah.
My response is to try to come up with an excuse why I struggle with it. So I was receiving criticism at a conference I was at, and it was intended to. We were intended to receive to present something and then to receive feedback. And every time somebody said something, I was trying to explain why I have an excuse for that being a mistake. Didn't have enough time. I thought we were talking about this, whatever. And the guy who was facilitating very gently said, Joe, it's okay. Just go ahead and receive it, process it later. And it was just like, oh man, at that moment, I'm like, this is something that I struggle with. So even in the best of circumstances, when people love you and are trying to help, there's just something that says, get off my back,
yeah.
right? I don't need
right.
to hear that. But
yeah.
There are some people who are good at it. Vanessa is extremely good at receiving feedback and incorporating that. But my pride, oh gosh, and I think that's really a big takeaway for me is just, I recognize that I want other people to change. I in my omniscient perspective as Joe Brookhouse can see all the opportunities to do better, and they should listen to me. But Lord, please don't let anybody tell me I have room to improve, because I'll, no, stop attacking me.
Yeah. And I think that's so much of us has the same issue. I don't think you're unique at all.
What do you mean I'm not unique? Wait, what? Sorry.
Right. And again, when I put this in our current culture context, even if you just leave the racism piece, but you just like right and left, right? That both sides have something that they could learn from the other. They all have a sin that they're not willing to recognize that there's something wrong there. and that humility to go, wait a minute here. Yeah, maybe their critiques are real.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's some what they're seeing something, right?
Well, one of my
You know?
one of my favorite things during sermons is when I stop and go when I go, oh, well, I wish so and so was here because I think they could really learn from this. And then usually when that thought enters my head, I go, okay, stop it. What should you, Joe, be getting out of this?
Yeah.
Don't worry about that other person. God's got them covered. Not my job, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So that's the sermon. Those couple of pieces, and it's all basic stuff. But we have, to look at this section with those three pieces in mind. It's clearly what Paul is the framework that Paul is working under, and none of it makes sense of what he's doing there without those three pieces. Everybody guilty. We really need a solution outside of ourselves, and that solution on a global civilizational level as well as individual level ultimately gets down to God. God has to fix the world because we can't. Doesn't mean you don't try. Doesn't mean, we don't try and do our best to be good people and to make amends and do what we can, but just don't put your hope in it. So,
yeah,
saved by grace.
Good stuff.
So, this Sunday we're going to be talking about, so exactly what did Jesus do to fix the problem? And this is going to be kind of a part one of part two, and has to do with abolishing the law and what does it mean to be in Jesus, and justice satisfied. That's kind of the idea this coming Sunday.
Ooh. Yeah. No, there's a song, Before the Throne of God Above, that talks about that.
Oh, okay.
For God the just was satisfied.
Oh, well, maybe we need to add that one in there for Sunday.
It's a great song. It's a great song.
It is.
All right. Well, I hope you all get out and enjoy the weather. I'm hanging out with Sam and helping him mend after a bit of a sickness, but I will get outside.
Good. You should go for a walk. Go play catch with the frisbee.
With the dog?
You can't. You can with you can play catch with the frisbee with a tree.
That's what disc golf is.
I know.
All right.
All right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you on Sunday.
Take care.
Bye.